So, if you don't know what this video is, this is a video series that I've done on my channel before. It's called Appreciation. And basically, it's me talking about a subject, group of movies, franchise, whatever, just one movie, and talking about it and just, showing it some appreciation. This one is going to be a little more negative, but I still appreciate it. What we're talking about today is the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, which I actually just finished watching. I haven't seen these movies in a few years, so I decided to rewatch it. Here's the Blu-ray set, which, if you want this Blu-ray set, it's a really good deal. 15 bucks, 3 movies, really good deal. You get the first one on Blu-ray, the second one, and then the third one, which is in my Blu-ray player. And then you have a bonus disc, which I believe has some of the shorts and other bonus features and stuff. So, yeah. Which the Blu-ray disc in this set are the same ones that you would get if you bought the trilogy separately, but 15 bucks, 3 movies, pretty good deal. So, let's talk about the first movie, and then we'll talk about them one by one and my experience with them. I remember very little about my experience seeing Kung Fu Panda 3 when it came out. Or not Kung Fu Panda 3, Kung Fu Panda, I mean. I just remember that in 2008, no one expected Kung Fu Panda to be a good movie. For crying out loud, it was Jack Black in a movie called Kung Fu Panda. I mean, it was just kind of like, it's a kid's movie. It's silly, it's dumb, but no one expected it to be one of DreamWorks' top franchises and a really great movie. And what I like a lot about this movie is the role reversal that you see in a lot of movies where it is not usually the old master that is wrong. And, it's not usually that way. In most stories, it's usually the student is wrong and he has to grow and learn. But this movie actually is about Shifu, and Shifu has the best arc within the movie because in the movie, Shifu has to learn, oh, hey, I've been training this guy. I didn't think he was able to do it, but he always was, but it was just my way of going about and teaching him that was wrong. And I like that because that is a thing in real life. You will, there's always people who, they can learn certain skills or other things. I've had lots of teachers in my life who have been terrible at teaching me things. But then another teacher who taught me the same thing was better at it. And why? Because they were better at teaching me individually and not just teaching like the way they would teach everybody else, And so it's an interesting role reversal. It's a very powerful moment when Shifu says, yes, I am your master, and Po, is willing to go along with it. And that's the great thing about Po in this movie. He's the best he is in the entire trilogy because it's his. He is determined this whole movie. No one thinks he's worthy. No one thinks that. And the only reason he doubts himself is because other people doubt himself. But yet he still keeps trying. And even though he's trying to fast track things a little bit, he's still trying to learn. And that's what's really great. He has a great character arc throughout this movie. Shifu has a great character arc throughout this movie. The action scenes are awesome and incredibly well shot. And, just it's a beautifully animated movie. Still looks good by today's standards. Not as good as the later movies in the trilogy, but, they came out later, so it's understandable. But it's a really, really solid movie. And that's what I love about this movie. Really, really solid. And, it has a great villain. I think the ending is a little dumb. Like, I've always hated the whooshy finger thing because it feels like such a, cop-out. Oh, we killed this guy. It was also a way of, you implying that you killed him without saying you killed him because it's a kid's movie. So, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of the ending. But yeah, I like that. I really love this movie. It's actually better than I remember it being. And the comedy is in the movie. It's very, it's a comedic comedy action movie, but for the most part, the comedy actually isn't as prevalent as you would imagine it would be in a movie like this. This movie takes a lot of its elements very seriously, which I really like. And the second movie expands upon it. Might be better. I'm still not sure, but the second movie Why I think the second movie is like a maybe, might be better, is the story might have been in. Excuse me. Thought I was gonna sneeze there. Might have been more impactful if in this movie, at the beginning of the movie, they didn't give you Poe's backstory. And why that's a problem is because the whole point of the story is Poe is trying to learn it and figure out what is, what's going on. But it's not a mystery because Poe already knows his backstory. Or, well, no. He doesn't know it. We as an audience really know it. And part of that mystery should be the character finding out his backstory and us finding it out as audience. It should be both of us trying to find out. He wants to find out, so we want to find out. It's kind of that type of writing. And I think that reveal at the beginning of the movie, telling us everything, just didn't need to be there. And it felt like it halted most of the movie. It's like, okay, we already know this information, but we have to wait for our main character to figure out the information we already know. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work. But for the most part, this movie's really strong, though. The action's really good. Poe's, journey of trying to learn who he is really good in this movie. Just, again, should have not been revealed at the beginning of the movie, but still really good. It's the threat is bigger. It has a really good villain. That's a lot better than the first one. Tai Lung was a decent villain. He wasn't super strong in that movie, but in Kung Fu Panda 2, we have a really memorable villain who really works. I just don't think it's quite as good as Kung Fu Panda 1 for that reason. But yeah, I think it's still great, like the first one. And then we get to Kung Fu Panda 3. When did this one come out? I'm trying to see a copyright date for Kung Fu Panda 2. Or not Kung Fu Panda 2, Kung Fu Panda 3. Oh, I think Kung Fu Panda 2, if I'm not mistaken, it came out the same year as Cars 2. Which Cars 2 was 2011, I believe. Had to be. So, that was the year that movie came out. Well, Kung Fu Panda 3 didn't come out till 2017. So it was about 6 years later. It was over half of a decade we waited for the Kung Fu Panda 3 to come out. I remember seeing on the posters this dumb joke that they had on the posters where, it was like Poe balancing and it said the wait was over, but it's not spelled like W-A-I-T. It was spelled like wait as mean like, implying Poe's fat, which, was such a dumb joke, but it was like, it really was a long wait for a sequel like this. This might have been the longest stretch between a sequel and the original, or not the original movie, the sequel before it, in DreamWorks history. I don't think they've had a sequel that they've waited this long for, except, you know what? I think it's The Croods. The Croods, that one came out, 2020, and the original came out in 2013. So it's about 7 years. So, I think it's a tie between these two, because they're about the same, somewhere in there. Yeah. But, yeah, I was really excited for this movie. I really loved the first two, and I'd waited years since I was a kid, waiting to find out what happened, because there was a big reveal at the end of Kung Fu Panda 2. Oh my gosh, his father's alive, and he needs to go find his son. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to know what happens. And then we waited 7 years. And I, as a kid who didn't really look at movie news websites, I always assumed this movie was never happening until I finally seen trailers. I'm like, it's happening. I'm so excited. And I got in the theater and I was incredibly disappointed. And for subsequent viewings after this, I was still very disappointed. And I'm less disappointed now, but still disappointed. Kung Fu Panda 3 is not a bad movie. It has a great score by Hans Zimmer. In fact, all three of these movies have great scores by Hans Zimmer, who's an incredible composer. He did I Hate Man of Steel, but that movie has an incredible soundtrack as well. Dunkirk, Interstellar, all have great soundtracks. He composed the original Lion King soundtrack. Not the actual songs, but like the score, which is better than the actual songs in the movie. I mean, songs are great, but that score is amazing. Incredible composer. He can compose The Prince of Egypt. So many great soundtracks. Just look up Hans Zimmer's catalog of stuff. Incredible composer. So, that's one thing. And the animation is the best it's ever looked. It's stunning, it's gorgeous, and it has some great emotional beats with it. I think once you get into the third act of Poe teaching the pandas and stopping Kai, and, you get to all that kind of stuff, and Poe actually learning about his mother, that scene was really great. Ping coming to terms that, he is now having, you know, he doesn't have to lose Poe to his new dad, basically. Things like that. Really great moments. That moment when Kai destroys the J Palace and you see that look of horror in Shifu's eyes. That's a really great moment. Stuff like that is amazing. That's what the rest of the trilogy had. So many great scenes like that. The issue with this movie is it is a very more... That's not even a sentence. It's a very more... No, that's not a sentence. It's, it just has a very kid focus. We're talking younger kids. The first two movies were kid movies, sure. Kids could watch them, but the style of writing and humor was good, and not all the jokes landed, but you could go like, okay, there's a couple for the kiddies. This movie, that's all the humor in this movie. It actually feels like a lot of this movie is a lot of meandering and characters just goofing off until the plot has to kick in. And that's what a lot of this movie feels like, and I just don't like that approach to this movie. I feel like moments in this movie just don't work. For the first 2 hours, or not 2 hours, first hour, actually we'll say about the first 40 to 50 minutes, because this movie's only an hour and a half, and it does not say. So, most anime movies about an hour and a half, so let's just say it is. For about half of its runtime, it just meanders along with some lame jokes. And not to say all of them didn't land, and there wasn't moments I chuckled or laughed even. There was. It just wasn't as funny, and it also didn't carry as much weight as the first two movies. Especially since Kai is a stronger villain. It should be a way stronger villain. First of all, he's voiced by J.K. Simmons, who is a terrific actor. But not only that, he's a terrific voice actor. We saw him this year play a very intimidating villain as Omni-Man. So we know this guy is capable of delivering incredible vocal performances as villains. And he just doesn't do it here. Most of his lines are jokes. He's not really treated very seriously by the other characters. Like, who's this guy? Who's Kai? They're not really concerned about it too much. I mean, they are, but they aren't, And it just doesn't come across like a villain we should care about or feel threatened by, From the moment that Lord Shen in the second movie appeared, the characters were like, we gotta save China. This is a very serious thing. They were afraid of him. And sure, there was jokes along the way, but for the most part, characters were very afraid of him. This movie doesn't feel like that. Doesn't have the urgency that the other two movies did. Even though this is a character who, he's from the spirit world. He can do a lot more damage than the villain in the last movie. So I'm just saying, it just doesn't work. But, I'd still appreciate moments in the third one. I'd say if you haven't seen the trilogy yet and you, wondering if you should watch the third one, you definitely should. It's great. Let me rephrase that. The first two movies are great. It is okay with some great moments. So you're not going to hate yourself watching it. You're just going to see that there's a definite downgrade. That's the way I feel about How to Train Your Dragon 3 as well. That there are some great moments in that movie, but there's a definite downgrade from the first two movies to the third one. And that's how I feel about that movie. And I feel like, this trilogy suffers the same fate. But I appreciate this whole trilogy. And it is a decent end to the whole series. And I loved these movies. I rewatched them quite a bit. And I'm glad I'm glad that I was able to watch them again and have this experience. I just wanted to share my love of this trilogy and talk about it with you guys.